Hi! Today I'm going to share a few language resources that I currently use to study languages on my own at home. So, the first thing that I love to look up when I'm starting to study a language are frequency lists. They are basically vocabulary lists where the words are prioritized by their frequency, so how commonly a word is used. You can then use those frequency lists to create, for example, flashcards or flashcard sets for Anki, or use those pre-made in certain apps like memrise. The great thing about frequency lists is that if you use those to study vocabulary, you already have all the vocabulary you need to be able to communicate very quickly, because those are the words that you'll probably use the most when communicating with native speakers, for example. That way, you're avoiding the trap of basically just studying vocabulary that is not really needed or is not really useful for you at that early stage in time, which is, for example, something that happened with me a lot when I was using Duolingo. This app that I'm currently showing, by the way, is called iknow and is perfect for Asian languages. So I can really recommend that. Frequency lists in general are available in so many languages and are basically the top tool I can recommend for beginner learners just starting out. You can also use vocabulary lists that are from certain textbooks. There are so many online textbooks and online websites for language learning, and most of those are actually very specialized on one language. For example, How to Study Korean is an amazing website that's available and only teaches Korean, but it's basically one of the best resources out there for it. So be always sure to search for resources in your target language that are maybe only available in your target language and not in a multi-language program, like for example lingq or Duolingo. I have made so many good experiences with targeted resources like these, so be sure to look on language learner forums, for example, for any recommendations in your specific language. Another resource that I just love are podcasts. Podcasts are amazing in whichever language you listen to them, basically, but they're especially great for language learning because they allow you to listen to a native speaker talk, maybe even at a bit of a slower pace than normally if you're listening to special learning podcasts, and allow you to get yourself into the mindset of that language, to get your ears trained for that language and to get into that language flow. Even if you don't understand so much at first, podcasts are great bite-sized pieces for your language learning and basically just to get used to the language at first before you try to watch movies, for example. There are podcasts on so many different topics in so many different languages, and they're so great to listen to when you're on the bus or commuting. But good old-fashioned songs are still one of the main resources people use to get motivated to learn a language. One of the first contacts I had with French, for example, was French music. So using that music to facilitate my language learning is something I really enjoy, for example, by looking up the lyrics if I don't know them quite yet. Self-studying is also supposed to be fun, so YouTube videos are one of the best ways to make language learning a lot more fun than just drilling grammar or vocab. Just change your language in the YouTube app to whatever your target language is and look at the trends, or follow recommendation. Basically, there are so many recommendations all over the internet for your target language and for great YouTubers in those target languages. Another amazing way to combine your hobbies with language learning is through movies. Letterboxd, for example, has amazing movie lists that people create to basically sort their favorite movies by genre or by origin, like here. And they have so many amazing lists, for example, for different foreign languages. That way you can look up the best Spanish movies, the best Chinese movies, the best Indian movies, and so on. And I love movies so much. But nothing beats learning a language through a native speaker. HelloTalk is an amazing app that lets you do just that through facilitating contact between you and a native speaker of the language. Basically, it works in tandem, so you learn their language and they are learning your language, and you can help each other based on common interests or based on common goals you have. It's so easy to find someone who's willing to practice with you, and it's so much fun to actually use what you learned and actually speak in the language that you're learning. But not all of us are extroverts, and to people who are more introverted like myself, curling up with a book is basically the best pastime. So reading is so important when learning a language, and even though you may think you're a beginner and you're not quite ready to tackle adult fiction yet, it's worth a lot just to try. I mean, it is quite a big project to tackle reading a whole book, but it's so much fun to go through the words and to see how much you already know. And if you don't know a word, you can just look it up easily on the internet. There are also apps like lingq that help you with this and that have built-in dictionaries and create vocabulary sets based on the words that you don't know. Some of us prefer old-fashioned textbooks though, and for those I have to say that basically you have to just find your own study method. Some people prefer to use digital books, some people prefer to use textbooks, some people prefer to use the textbooks from classic school lessons, and some people don't like those at all. It's so important in language learning to find your own way and to see what works best for you, because I think it's such a personal experience and something that basically you have to evolve for yourself. Because as much as you and your character and your language evolves, your study methods evolve as well. That's why it's also so much easier to learn a third or fourth language if you already tackled learning a second language that wasn't your native language. So basically, of course it's a long road, but it's such a fun one, and it's going to get easier the longer you stick with it and the longer you really believe that you can do it. Also, another tip I had was to try to do a little bit every day. With all the resources I've shown you before, it's pretty easy to make a little study plan where you just say, okay, today I'll do maybe just half an hour of grammar or vocabulary, and tomorrow I'll just listen to a podcast episode, and so on. It's really important to try and study a little bit at a time and see your progress that way, and not bulk everything into a 5-hour study session and then be burned out and not study for the rest of the week at all. What I always love to do as well is to create different notebooks for different language as well as for different areas of language, for example for grammar, for vocabulary, or just for writing exercises. That way you have everything compartmentalized in your head. And I have to say, writing by hand and trying out the new script, for example if your language has a new script, is a lot of fun as well, so you should definitely try that out. The last thing that I wanted to say is that nobody is born a polyglot. It's not some talent that only a few people have. If you have the discipline and if you love what you do, if you have the passion for it, learning a language can be so much fun and can be so easy. So you should try it, and you should just see where your language journey takes you.